everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I hope that you find what Mike is about to talk about useful for your business. I hope you have your pen and paper ready. I would like to thank Mike for doing this webinar and for giving up family time to do this for us. So thank you very much. Yeah, Mike, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mina. Thanks for that. I wanted to give you the opportunity to introduce the session. And I was speaking to Mina at quite a length in terms of what topic you would like to hear about this evening. And we decided that the topic of interest was around marketing your business and ideally on the best budget that you can. Just a little bit briefly about myself, if I may. I currently work for a firm of accountants as a commercial director. That's Chapman Robinson Moore. But previously, my career is quite varied. I was the area manager for Barclays Small Business and then decided to move into the leisure industry before in 2003 setting up my own businesses, of which have been quite varied, of a bookkeeping business, marketing company, a health and safety training business, an indoor soft play centre, and a membership organisation. So quite a varied background, and use a lot of these theories and techniques that I'm going to talk to you tonight across all those businesses, and I've seen those work in all areas. So I'm hoping that you're going to be able to take at least one thing away from this session today and apply it to your business to be able to market your business on a budget. This webinar is being recorded, so I will share with Mina the link. So if you do miss anything in terms of your notes, you'll be able to revisit that in the future. I just wanted to check on the right hand side, you should see a chat box. If I can make sure that you can hear me by typing yes in that box or a Y in that box. Make sure I'm not talking to myself. Lovely, thank you. So let's get into the context. We've got a fair bit to go through. I'm going to go through it quite rapidly. I think Mina was a bit concerned whether I'd get everything in this evening, but we're going to have a go and see if I can give you as much information as possible. Like I say, my background, I did run my own marketing company, and I'm predominantly running a role of marketing and business development now. So hopefully there's some sort of credibility in terms of what I'm going to be talking about. So what I'm going to really be focusing on is your need for obviously a good return on your investment and making sure that that's your focus, which I'm sure it is. Understanding what your marketing budget is and what you need rather than just guessing a budget that you might want to spend on. How you align that sales and marketing funnel that you've got with your buyer's journey. I'm going to talk a little bit about ideal client focus and how you can be consistent with your messaging. So a talk I do quite often is really around how you win your ideal clients, and that's really a combination of two areas. First of all, the marketing strategy, and then also the tactics about how you're going to attract those ideal clients. So first of all, the strategic point, who is it you want as clients? What does your business represent? And then using the actual tactics that are proven ways to attract those clients. And I've worked as a mentor now for about the last 5 years. My personal brand is called the Entrepreneur's Mentor. And what I quite often work with my clients about is narrowing down their focus for their marketing, because we could spend hundreds, thousands of pounds on marketing with a scattergun approach, but predominantly by focusing on who our ideal clients are, we can narrow down our focus and therefore narrow down our spend. So I can talk a little bit more about that. So now this is a quote off of Wikipedia, so it must be true as we all know, but it's a quote that I do quite like because it combines three key areas. It's that concentration of your efforts with your limited resources to maximize those greatest opportunities that you have to the benefit of your business. And predominantly for me, that's what the marketing is all about. It's about effective marketing to bring you opportunities that you can convert with your sales process. Now, I'm sure you've heard the thought process before about making sure that your prospect knows, likes, and trusts you before they're likely to buy. And you may have seen this sales type funnel before, where you put all your activity in the top of the funnel. You make sure you take action in a proactive way and convert your clients or customers into income. And you can see on the right hand side the flow that tends to happen from a customer perspective. So they become a contact or a suspect of yours. They then become a lead but start to show interest and make an inquiry, ask for a quote, and then you hopefully that they become clients and then later become advocates of you and then referrers. And what I was saying earlier is about how you correlate that with the buyer's journey. And quite often when we approach people from a marketing perspective, they're really at that point number one. They're really unaware of you, they're untroubled, don't realise they've probably got that need or want for your product or service. So how can you align your marketing funnel to perhaps bring that buyer's journey aligned and ensure that they feel that they're troubled and anxious, they can identify the needs that they have with what you're offering, and therefore eventually engage with you by adding you to their shortlist of prospective buyers, either immediately or as soon as the opportunity becomes available. So again, quite often in my mentoring, I talk to people around marketing being a mindset, because it actually isn't about magic. It is just, for me, about a planned process. Having a planned process that can work you towards identifying who you want to attract, how you're going to attract them, and when you attract them, what it is that you're saying to them. And one of the words that I use when I'm talking to my clients about helping them think about the mindset of marketing is to encourage you to help your customers or your prospects to buy, and that you're not selling to them. Because I'm sure, like many others, if you think of the word sales, you relate to certain industries and certain businesses that are hard sell. You probably don't like that hard sell, and then for that changes your mindset. So a lot of people ask me, well, where do I start? And I suppose my feedback is, well, first of all, identify what it is that you want for your business. What is it is that you want for your business to deliver for you? And then once you've established that, it's then identifying who do you really want as an ideal client to be able to deliver that vision. Once you can identify who that ideal client is, then you can do a bit of market research to ask that ideal client what it is they specifically want from you, rather than perhaps you perceiving what it is that they want from you. And again, that's quite a big mistake a lot of people make with their marketing, is that they try to put themselves in the shoes of their own customers, but they buy from how they would buy or what the pain and problem would be for themselves without asking their ideal client, which may have just a different view or a different approach of how they buy or what triggers their buying sort of signals, etc. And obviously from that, you can then create a strategy, and anybody that knows me, or if Mina spoke about me before, will know that I'm hugely an advocate of making a plan and having focused action. And with a plan and a focus of what you need to do, just actually getting on and doing it rather than procrastinating and thinking about the risks in too much detail that in effect tend to stop you from doing it. A great example is I was listening to a presentation this morning. In that key 5 minutes when we decide to do something, we can easily be dissuaded from doing it. So for example, I wake up in the morning, I'm warm under my duvet. Do I get up and just get started, or do I easily hit that snooze button? Or if I think about going to the gym, do I just jump in the car and go, or do I spend 5 seconds dissuading myself that it's a good idea to go? Just simple examples. So when I think about ideal clients or ideal client, depending on what your focus wants to be, some people just tend to focus on one. Some people have a number of ideal clients. But this is a little bit, again, I'm sure you've heard the analogy. Rather than pulling out the shotgun and firing the shotgun and hoping it hits someone, is trying to take out a rifle and, like a sniper, pick out your targets. Because actually, if we work with our ideal clients, it's much more rewarding. We can concentrate our marketing efforts, because I'll come on to say is once we know who our ideal client is, we're likely to know where they are, so we can fish in the right ponds rather than just throwing marketing money out and hope it's going to stick somewhere. We can obviously better understand the needs of our market and how our product or service can help them, and we can therefore identify product or service gaps and easily adapt to what our product requires. And this fundamentally is really around the title about how we can market on a budget, because we can talk about, which I'm going to, the tactics that you could use in your business, and we could talk about those that are perhaps cheaper to do than others. For example, brand advertising, which you see done by McDonald's, adverts all over the TV, bus stops, etc. That wouldn't necessarily be advisable. But if we're very targeted about what we want, and for example, let's say our ideal client reads a particular magazine, it would be wise to spend our money in that magazine as an advert or an editorial, etc., etc. I'll come on to that in a bit more detail. So first of all, it's establishing then who it is that you want as clients. And you can do that through profiling, segmentation, and a bit of market research. So market research is the one that I always encourage you to beyond your friends and family. When I used to be a manager at Barclays, a lot of startups came to me, said I've done my market research, and it was predominantly with their friends, family, who are very likely to say, what a great idea, and just pat you on the back to get on with it. But a bit of market research, especially with who you consider to be your ideal client, will help you shape and, in effect, help your profiling and segmentation. Segmentation may be around things like life stages. So if I was a solicitor, for example, I might have a service for someone who's buying a house, then leads on someone having a baby, who's then someone's selling the house, buying a business, or whatever the stage may be in their business. The profiling is probably the more common one, where people might say that I'm focused on an industry, I'm focused on a personal persona, such as an age of a person, a type of work that they do, a level of interest that they have, or an area of interest they have. So thinking about how you can profile your clients to be those ideal clients that you want, knowing what their interests are, and particularly their personal persona, will help your marketing. So again, who are your ideal clients? What does that profile of your ideal client really look like? And ultimately, once you've got that profile, you'll have a better understanding of what it is that they want from you, and therefore you can shape your proposition to meet those needs and objectives that that client has. And I talk quite often about pain, problem, and fear. And all your marketing should engage with your prospects' pain, problem, and fear. So what's the pain they're looking to avoid? What's the problem they're looking to avoid? What's the fear they're looking to avoid? And what's the solution that you have to help that avoidance? And a real simple one, when I used to have a bookkeeping business, for example, nobody necessarily was waking up in the middle of the night saying, bookkeeper, that's exactly what I need. They were probably waking up in the night saying, I haven't got enough time, I'm making a mess of my own financials, I need someone with a bit more knowledge to help me. And that was the sort of things that was keeping them awake at night, not that they needed necessarily a bookkeeper. So what it is the things that's keeping your prospects awake that you have a solution for. And predominantly that impacts then on your value. And therefore you don't necessarily get tied into a conversation purely around price, because you're marketing your proposition to that pain, problem, and fear. It also leads to then what the objections they have. And I'm a firm believer that most prospects of most businesses only have a handful of objections that they're likely to have. So I encourage my clients that I work with is to think, well, okay, if they're the 5 most common objections I'm likely to get in my proposition or in my offering, how can I overcome those objections before my client, or my prospect comes up with those objections, and therefore they're more likely to become a client of mine. So consider what the objections could be based on their pain, problem, fear, what they're going to be asking for you. So hopefully that gives you a bit of idea around a whistle-stop tour, if you like, around strategy. But I think it's important from a strategy point of view to really understand what it is you're striving to achieve. And I see it with a lot of startups that I've advised in the past with my mentoring role, but also in terms of what the startups that I now see in my current role, is that people have a little bit of uncertainty about what they're looking for from a customer, take on the first customer. That first customer is perhaps time consuming, not that ideal customer that you ideally want to sack, but the money's quite good, so you don't, and therefore you haven't got time to go and market to the ideal clients. So it's about being mindful about who you want to attract and how you can attract those. So I'm going to move more now onto the actual tactics and the ways that you can market your business to, I suppose, build on that strategy and then attract those new clients or customers to yourself. So I suppose the point here is that if you've done your strategy, you know who it is that you want to attract, but how do you attract them? And for me, it's about having that tactical plan, that you've got an idea of what actions you want to accomplish over the next year, for example, or the next time period. And within there, you then plan your time and take some action. And again, I'm a huge planner of my time. I encourage people to mark time out of their diary, a couple of hours a week for this, a couple of hours a week for that. So, for example, when people say to me, we haven't got time for social media, for example, the first 2 hours of my Monday, I schedule most of my social media activity for the week ahead. And then I drip feed my social media based on what I'm doing then throughout the week. But a lot of people say, Mike, you're quite active on social media. That's because I've been very focused in that moment of time, and I've chosen the right environment, I suppose, to use a tool to attract my ideal clients. I think also one of the other things is about how you push your comfort zone and stop those limiting beliefs. So quite often, for example, people may say, well, I won't try telesales or direct marketing or social media or pay-per-click advertising because I've heard someone else tried it and it didn't work for them. Or you've tried it yourself, you didn't enjoy doing it, so therefore you're not going to do that. And quite often the success comes from knowing what works by you testing it, and also by pushing your own comfort zone. So there are various marketing tactics that you may use to try and attract those ideal customers and pull them towards you. And my, I suppose, focus and emphasis for all the marketing that I do now for Chapman Robinson and more, or for businesses I've run in the past, is with a mindset to say, how can I continually encourage a prospect to lean towards me, continue to lean towards me with interest, that they then make that level of engagement to want to know more. So you're probably all looking at this diagram now and saying, well, okay, some of those are applicable to me, some of those I'm doing already. Have I tried those? Could I try those? And what would be the benefit of those? And are they the right tools or tactics for my business? The most important thing I want to say here is whatever you put into your mix of your marketing, make sure it's integrated and make sure it's consistent. So I can give you an example. If you came along to a networking group that I run in Oxford and you said at the networking event face to face to me, this is what I do, this is what I can offer, and this is the benefits for you, I might not buy immediately from you, but you can probably guess what I would do when I get back to the office. It's from your business card. I'd look up your website and I'd read a little bit more about you on your website or on your social media or wherever you may have given me some literature, etc. So what you verbalized to me at the networking event, is that consistent with what you've got on your website, what you've got in your print material, what you've got on your social media platforms? Because I can assure you, if it's not, I'll get confused. And when prospects are confused, it's too easy for them to disengage and find a potential other supplier rather than continue their interest with yourself. So make sure everything's consistent. That's probably one of the cheapest things you can do to market your business on a budget, is make sure things are consistent. You have a consistent brand appearance, and like I say, the prospect has clarity about what it is that you offer and how you can help them. Sorry. So maybe like I said already, don't blow the budget. So what we're going to look at in terms of marketing tactics that don't blow that budget, I'm going to start with networking. Obviously, I'm sure many of you have tried networking or been engaged with networking. I'm a huge advocate of networking. Actually, probably about 80% of our business development is undertaken with networking by either running my own groups. I run 2 groups in Oxfordshire. I'm involved in predominantly 2 others, but I've been very selective, which I'll come on to. So what is networking? And for me, it's much more than the next greasy breakfast or the glass of fizzy wine at an evening event that you may attend. It's much more about building your network and how that network can be of benefit to you. And interestingly, this morning, I was at Didcot Girls' School doing some work with the students there about building that network to obtain their ideal work placement. So whatever your purpose is, your network can assist you with that objective. So I break the word networking down to try and communicate what I believe networking is. So first of all, it's about creating that network. Who do you want in your network can influence your business? I call them key business influencers. So those key business influencers that can impact by either buying from you, introducing you, or recommending you. And create that network of either people, positions, types of businesses, etc. And normally they would be people that are obviously touching regularly your ideal client or ideal customer, or have a similar customer base. Second word in the word networking is then a net. So in effect, have a mindset where you capture those people, and what do you need to do to keep them in your net? So you haven't got any holes in your net so they can disappear out. And what can you do continually proactive to make sure that they're retaining interest of you and continually leaning forward? Because again, our experience, that's your experience as a buyer or in terms of promoting your business, is that we need to do more than one touch for someone to actually buy our service. It's like when you go out to buy something, it's unlikely there will be impulse buys, but it's unlikely that serious purchases that you make will be made on that one visit or that one search on the internet. The third word is the word work, and this is the important part. This is where people tend to give up. This is where you go along to a networking event, for example, or you build a network online. You've got a contact base of people, but you think that's enough. And actually, if you don't work your network, keep reminding them what you're looking for and engaging with them in a proactive way, they can quite easily lose a memory of who you are, what it is that you do, and why you do it. So how are you going to continually work your network to keep, I suppose, in their face, as I say, and remind them about what it is you do on a regular basis? And the last word is the king, because it's so cost effective in terms of networking that if you do it right, it can probably be the best spend you can do on your marketing activity. That's not for every business. Some of you may be running, for example, an online business, so you need to build your network online rather than, say, at events. But it is still networking. That's why I say it's more than just that greasy breakfast or that evening drinks. So who's likely to be in your network? And I tend to draw a diagram a little bit like a mind map with myself in the middle and then spikes off of that circle and identify for the purpose that I'm working on at this moment in time, who is it that I need to engage with, and importantly, why I need to engage with them. And a piece of work I was doing with the Didcot Girls' School this morning is obviously the students didn't know specifically names, but they started to put, well, actually, if I want to get a work placement in engineering, for example, where are the types of places do I need to get that work placement, and who are the types of people, or what are the type of roles of people that I need to speak to? Again, it's all about being organised and focusing the mind of who you want to attract. But often when we think about networking, we forget about what our classes are, our real network. And our real network starts much closer to home than we think. And I've already had feedback from the teacher at Didcot Girls today that one girl went home at the end of school, said to her parents what she was looking for from a work placement, and basically her parents said, well, did you not know one of my good friends runs a business like that? So it's again putting the bread on the water, if you like. So our closest network, family, friends, neighbours, old people we used to work with, then we go into business associates, other business owners, and then the professional organisations like ourselves, where obviously we look after a number of businesses and know a number of people. The one for me that I pick out from this list is probably friends of your children or parents of your children's sports club, for example. So the classic I use is if you've ever taken one of your children to swimming lessons, I'm sure you've looked around the wall of the swimming pool and every single parent is head down, probably on their mobile phone at some point, glancing up to see how the lessons are going. But the actual communication between the adults is fairly limited. However, I've seen many examples, just by asking an example of what type of work do you do, etc., where that's opened up avenues for other people. So, for example, I was at my boys' football club a couple of weeks ago, speaking to one of the parents. His wife sells swimming accessories, branded swimming accessories, and hopefully I've been able to put them in touch with a few of the leisure clubs that I used to work with when I was in the health and fitness industry that have swimming pools to being able to sell their merchandise. So think about who's in your real network, how you can build your network, obviously events, thinking about that online, and the face-to-face. And I think the more you can do face-to-face, the more you can do actually on the telephone. Those traditional tools that we have, yes, they may take a little bit longer, but they're cost-effective and they make huge impact compared to more spam email. So if your business is suited to business-to-business networking events, what are the best? Well, my recommendation is there's so many choices out there. Particularly, I'm in Oxfordshire myself. There are a huge number of networking events. I think the joke in Oxfordshire is that you can have breakfast, lunch and dinner networking event. So find that one that suits you. Again, push that comfort zone, but some people don't like standing up for 60 seconds, giving a presentation, having the pressure of taking referrals to, say, a referral group. That can work really well. Others prefer a more relaxed style of just socialising and getting people to buy people. So find that group that suits you, or do what I did, is create your own group. The power of creating your own group is that you can ensure, when it talks about networking, you can put a net over the top of the people that you want in your group as a way of protecting your network. And that's just until I'm not going to run through those one by one. They're beyond the recording, and I think Mina's going to circulate the slides as well. But there's just some tips that you could say at the first meeting, or you could do at the first meeting. And the one I would pick out from here is the third bullet point from the end, is to get introduced. So make a good relationship with the person that's running the group. The person running the group tends to know most of the people pretty well. And people attending are attending that group because of the person running the group quite often. And by you asking for an introduction by that person, it's that immediate transfer of trust that, well, like for example, if you ask me running my own group and I said, well, come and meet such and such, you've got an immediate transfer of trust for that conversation to engage fairly quickly, rather than traditionally walking into a room, finding the coffee table, turning around and just thinking, well, who shall I go and speak to next? And that helps to be very focused about who you want as an ideal client or an ideal person that you want to speak to when you go into the room. And if you can find out who's going to be at that meeting by being there before, or having an advanced list of who's likely to be there, obviously that can help. The other thing I pick out is the third bullet from the top, is have a response ready for that most common question, is what do you do? But be first to ask it. The reason why I encourage you to be the first to ask it is that you will then have the opportunity to shape your response with relevance to what they tell you. So, for example, I'm an accountant. I meet a bookkeeper at a networking event. I ask them what they do. They tell me they're a bookkeeper that specialises in the hospitality trade. I can then reflect back when I'm asked about what it is I do, is that by coincidence, we're an accountancy firm that specialises in the hospitality trade. And there's an immediate synergy. Let's look at some other areas. What's your message? What's going to make people want to listen? Avoid that silent response of so what. So again, I'm sure you've been at an event where someone said, this is what I do, and you're going, yeah, so what? And I call it about 3 lights. How do you turn on the lights in the head? It says, I'm interested, I'm really interested. Now I'm going to ask you the question to tell me more. And as I said at the top, that's not really just about networking. That's consistent in terms of if you've been speaking to someone in a prospects meeting, what you may say in your copy on your website is what's going to want someone to read it on. So what is it that you really do? And again, I might ask you what it is you do at a networking event or something, or asking for what your copy says on your website. And I could say I'm a bookkeeper, but I used to say I support other business owners. And the reason why I used to do that is because if I said I'm a bookkeeper, people had an immediate perception about what a bookkeeper does. There's also that moment where first impressions are created. And therefore, if they've got a perception of what a bookkeeper is, that's going to be spoiled immediately. Whereas if I said I supported other business owners, they've got to do one thing. They've got to ask me, well, how do you do that? And the other examples that I've got here for you is, from my perspective, we process accounts. Yes, we do. So what? We do tax planning. Yes, we do. So what? But if we can actually relate it to what things we actually really do, in terms of helping our clients pain, problem, and fear, they're more likely to want to engage. So another area which extends the networking, so a further tactic to talk about, is referrals. Now, people quite often think, well, the two are the same, but actually your referral strategy can be a sole strategy or linked to your networking. So I suppose the big question is, do you really ask for referrals, or do you just hope they come along because you do a good job, as does everybody else, and therefore, because you do a good job, someone's going to recommend you? And quite often, a referral has to be asked for, but asked for at the right time in the right way. To give you an example, we do a client survey. We have 99% of our clients in their survey say that they would recommend us. We get less than 10% a year that on the same survey give us a specific name, because they're not at the right time ready to make that referral, or got the right reason in a survey to give that review. So target those delighted customers as well as your network. Quite often when people think about referrals, they're purely thinking about their network of contacts rather than their customers. And the best time to ask your customer for a referral is obviously when they're at that heightened point of delighted. So that might be just after a purchase, quite soon after a purchase, or when they've said something in reply that you've highlighted that they're happy with your service. And ultimately, referrals is about being proactive. What can you put in place to help you generate referrals? So this is what I was referring to with my network. Again, you can think about this with referrers. You in the middle, who's your likely referrers, key business influencers in your business. And to help you get more referrals, it's about increasing your profile with those people that can make referrals to you. Get them talking about you and your reputation. Get them to do the hard work for you, and they'll be able to then speak on your behalf. How can you get into events? How can you become that reference, that go-to expert for the business that you offer? And one of the things I've seen done really well is offering an expert helpline for advice or some guidance on what you may be able to offer. But ultimately, there's some ideas there, but the message there is really to keep yourself in the mind of your referrers. Communicate what your ideal referral looks like. Gather proof that you can do the work, so testimonials, awards, etc., and make sure you've got that compelling offer for both the referrer and for the prospect. So, for example, from an accountant referring to a bookkeeper, we do that because we find the year end easier, and plus we're not doing as much work, and therefore our work may be more profitable on the quality of the work that's been done. So another tactic, which is reasonably low budget, depending on where you advertise, could be placed in an advert. Now, I will caveat this, that I'm not a huge spender on advertising. but I'm very selective where we will place an advert. We will place an advert where our ideal client is and what they're reading, such as the publication and the type of articles that capture that interest. So, because we at Chapman Robinson know who our ideal client is, we will, from their personal persona, identify what it is that they read. We'll place an advert in that parish magazine, for example, or we used to sponsor the ice hockey, for example. But we'd identify in those publications which were the most read pages, and we would make it a condition of placing an advert. And at the end of the day, not many people make conditions, so you tend to get them, to say that we'll place an advert as long as it's alongside X page, which is the page that's being read by our ideal client. Other ways where you can place adverts, maybe where your footfall of your customer is. So, for example, I've got a client who's a plumber, and he tends to put a lot of his business cards and publications around shop windows, on trade counters, which is, again, where his ideal clients are likely to be looking for his type of work. And importantly with advertising, because it can get out of budget if you're not too careful, is making sure you're measuring your response rates, identifying your return on investments. So make sure your adverts have a specific call of action so that you can actually identify where that prospect came from and which advert that they identified. PR is another tactic that you could use. And again, people tend to avoid this because it can be seen to be quite long-winded. So it could take a long time to put the right article together. We procrastinate on what the right words might be. But we procrastinate because we don't do our research, because we haven't asked our ideal clients what type of article they would like to read. And therefore, we write an article, we try to write the best article that we think they want to read. And more we're seeing that certainly the printed material are looking for PR or advertorials, so adverts with copy, because they can't fill their space with the advertising revenue that they need. So just some tips there on writing some PR. Try and get that for free. Generally speaking, and one of the tactics we use is we write a piece of PR, we send it to a publication, and so we're not necessarily looking for it to go in this month's publication, but if you've got a gap that you can't fill, please feel free to use our article. And again, quite often that's been used. Make sure you've got strong headlines, and again, a little bit like with any copy, avoid that so what. The important message at the bottom there is make sure you get your message over early in your PR, in your press release, because you might write an article, say 600 words. The editor reads the whole 600 but is quite engaged, then actually thinks, well, I've only got 300 words, and actually what they would tend to do is just draw a line at 300 and take your first 300 in, and you may have been saving the best till last. So get the best in early. So some tips there, again, about writing an effective press release. Again, tips that we've gathered from experts in the past. It's not my specific area of expertise, so I've needed these tips to follow. And again, you've got things like the fonts to use, about using facts and figures to back up your claims. I'd say having something eye-catching, but make sure you provide your contact details. Because quite often with press releases, there is some sort of follow-up before it actually gets published. So I think the important thing with PR is that people think, well, what shall I write about? But at the end of the day, we've all got a story to tell. We've got a journey that we've undertaken. We've got an experience that we can tell. And if you could involve your clients in that, or even get your clients to write the PR, it's often more engaging for the editors to utilise and use. So, for example, if I gave you a really simple example, is that we recently did a fundraising activity for a charity. If we had written to the newspapers saying, look what we've done for this charity, despite raising 3,500, the editors would have gone, all you're doing is promoting your business, we're not interested. We got the charity to do that story, and it got published because it came from a charitable angle. So if you're struggling with some PR ideas, there's some thoughts. Again, I won't run through them for more. I'm sure you've heard things like publicity stints, etc. But really what I'd encourage you to think about is, in any of your PR, what positions you as that go-to expert. And I'm sure you're like many other people, our mind has been educated over the recent years to read snippets of information as quickly as possible, see if we're engaged about whether we want to read more, to get your point over quickly and succinctly. So again, another tactic you may be used, and again is perhaps more cost effective than some others, is a leaflet distribution. And again, for me, this is about knowing your target market. Predominantly, as I say with an exclamation mark there, is to save your fee. But make sure that, first of all, your leaflet is clear about what it is that you offer and gives a reason to want to contact you, and clearly has your call to action, your contact details. Do you want them to go to your website? Do you want them to make a telephone call for you? I use this example. So when I was working with a lot of bookkeepers wanted to work with the construction industry because it's an industry that tends to look for support of bookkeepers. Got some specialist requirements around construction industry requirements, etc. So when I was encouraging people to do a leaflet drop, I would encourage the bookkeepers to think about, well, is there a particular area around where you live which is likely to house people that work for themselves in the construction industry? And it would make sense to go and do a leaflet drop around the area. And even more specifically, so if there's a white van on the driveway, that house has definitely got to have a leaflet. So again, how focused you can get, knowing who your ideal client is and where they're likely to be. As I say, fish in the right ponds. And very similar to the leaflet drop is then taking that to a direct mail point. I'm not a huge fan of mass direct mail. It's a little bit like spam email for me, is that you can't necessarily follow them up, and it just feels you're doing an exercise for exercise sake. And with the stamps now, what, 50p a shot, then you've got to be effective with your direct mail. So we tend to do direct mail pieces at 5, 10 at a time, and then that gives us an opportunity to follow that through, personalise, be very specific. And with our direct mail pieces, we do a lot of research up front to make sure we're establishing who the direct mail has to go to in terms of the decision maker, and making sure that we're personalising it to that individual. I'm, again, a big advocate, and I suppose with the data protection regulations coming in, of building your own list of contacts and prospects rather than buying those lists. But again, you'll have your own choice in what your type of business is and what type of volume that is you need to do. Like I say, again, make sure that you've got your strong call to action that you need. Include testimonials, case studies, for example, what you can have, depending on what you want to put in that direct mail. So then that leads into what I class as telesales. Don't necessarily like the word telesales, but it's the word I use in presentations. That's what we relate to. But this correlates with why I say use a small list. Because if I've got a list of 100 to make today, and my first 2 calls that I make are not so successful. I get perhaps a little bit beaten up on those first 2 calls. I'm likely to stop and not make the final 98. Whereas if I've done a selection of 5, it's not so bad giving up on 5. I've not wasted so many. Also, I think in terms of 5, sitting down to make 5 calls versus sitting down to make 100 calls, it's about that mindset and positioning your mind. And again, as I say, they're small samples, and I suggest that you do it yourself rather than getting somebody else to do it. My experience, there are some great agencies out there, there are some poor agencies, but nobody does it with the same passion you have. They don't have the answers you have, and your purpose and your drive is slightly different to theirs. They're about making appointments in the main, whereas you're perhaps trying to build more of a relationship and encourage that person to buy from you. So social media, so conscious of time, so I'll just cover these other tactics that I've got. There's so many platforms. The key thing with social media is make sure you choose that appropriate platform. Where is it that your clients or prospects are likely to be hanging out? Keep using the word clients or prospects, because most people think that their marketing has to be just to prospects. But we can sell as much to our existing clients as we potentially can to our prospects. So in terms of social media, there's some tips there. Again, if your business is perhaps consumer driven, you might find something like Facebook and adverts on Facebook more effective. But with social media, standard networking rules apply. So if you were at a standard networking event, breakfast event, for example, and there was a group of 3 people talking, you wouldn't jump straight in the middle and go, "Hi, I'm Mike. This is what I do. Listen to me. Stop talking." So same rules apply on social media. Don't just jump in. Come in from the outside. Listen. See what people are talking about. See what your message is in terms of relevance to there, and then make contribution. Give more, contribute more, and what goes around comes around, in my opinion. But the most important thing is choosing that appropriate platform. So if I think about my businesses in the past, when I had a bookkeeping practice, LinkedIn was the best. When I had a franchise, Twitter was the best, because I was then engaging with people that didn't necessarily know about us. When I had an indoor soft play centre, Facebook was the best. So again, finding that platform that's ideal for you. Focus on one really well and use the others as peripherals, in my opinion. And again, really a cost-effective social media you can do. We can set them up with no cost nowadays. And again, if we're focused on our ideal client, which platform they're likely to be in, and what messages they want to hear, it can be really powerful. Hopefully you've all got some sort of website presence, whether it's a one page or some reference. I think it's main habit now of most people say, I'm going to look up a website. Make sure your website has those 2 purposes, about attracting new prospects, but also supporting that other marketing activity that I talked about earlier. So if someone sees you at a networking event, they're going to likely to go to your website for that confirmation. So key thing with website, put yourself in your customer's shoes, do your research, find out what it is they're looking for, what's their pain, problem, fear, and how does your copy encourage that prospect to lean towards you with interest. And ultimately, if you're going to rely on Google searches, make sure that your search engine optimization effective, so that when people put in your keywords, they find your site locally. Or if you're a UK business, then obviously from a wider field. So the key question I always ask my customers is, what's your prospective customer typing into Google? And making sure that your website responds to that search term. So some other online marketing that I encourage you to think about, again, really cost effective. Email marketing promotions, obviously with the general data protection regulations coming in May, you need to think about making sure people are opted in on your lists. You might participate in forums or LinkedIn groups, for example. It's really easy to write a blog. I think a lot of people are using their PR around blogs nowadays. And think about other media. So more people are moving on to videos, audio podcasts, web conferencing, etc., to share their message. I haven't gone into too much detail there because they're going to be really specific to different types of businesses. One of the ones I do encourage you to think about is a newsletter, because this can engage with your existing customers, it can engage with your prospects, and it can engage with your key business influencers that form part of your network. It enables you to keep in contact. It's an excuse of keeping your brand in front of your people, and it also keeps you thinking about how you engage with your market. So use a newsletter to share your knowledge, particularly of any particular market, show your expertise, but share information, not necessarily a sales pitch. And again, your newsletter may be online or offline. Again, most people tend to use online email newsletters, but your market may prefer having a printed version in their hand. And actually, I've seen some businesses that are doing printed versions again now and getting much more readership due to the level of spam emails there are. So as I said earlier, I'm a big planner, and this is the sort of thing that I do to plan activity. So I'd have the activity listed down the left-hand side. I'd have the months or the weeks across the top that we're working from. So in our business, we have a 3-month activity plan, and I'm held accountable for that activity being delivered throughout that business. Some of it by me personally, some by other partners in the business, some by everybody in the business. And again, wherever there's a yellow box, you'll see me ticking that off to say we've actually undertaken that activity in that month. And what you'll find if you look at my diary, you'll see, for example, today, 1 hour or 2 hour blocks marked out for things that I need to finish off today before the Easter holidays that made sure that we delivered that activity. So it was amending something on our website, it was writing a blog article, finishing a blog article, a bit of social media scheduled for whilst I'm away, and I had a meeting with a partner. So again, activity scheduled, and it stops that procrastination, and it makes sure that I'm focused on what I call my key payoff activities. If I know what my key payoff activities are, I plan them and I deliver them, I definitely know when I'm interrupted or distracted. So this brings me to the end of what I've said to Mina that I would cover today. I was conscious of time, so hopefully that's the hour. But my main message is if you know what it is that you really want and how to make it easy to obtain, then marketing to win new clients is like a tap. Turn it on when you need it or leave it flowing. And I encourage you to have a system that leaves your marketing flowing at all times so that you have a consistent flow of potential new clients, a pipeline coming to you. So I'm conscious of time. We said an hour, but I am happy to sit here and answer any questions that people may have. So if I can encourage you to, if you do have any immediate questions, to drop them into the chat, and I'll look to answer those for you. Thank you for the comments that are coming through on the chat. In terms of thanking, hopefully it has been thought-provoking for you. I always say whenever I'm asked to run a webinar or speak at an event that hopefully there's just one nugget that you can take away. There may be more, but if there's just one nugget, I've achieved what I set out to do, is to give everybody something to take away. So, as there's no specific questions coming through, I think Mina's going to share the slides with you. There are my contact details, either social media for me personally on Twitter or the company I work for. That's my LinkedIn profile. So if you do have any questions, please do engage with me, drop me a line. More than happy to help or respond to a query from there. I don't know if Mina's. Sorry, I've got a question just come through. My partner runs an events company. He isn't on social media properly. He doesn't post properly and isn't active. How can I convince him it's an essential part of his marketing mix? Good question. I guess he needs to see the evidence of the noise that's on social media being beneficial to him. And I think the key aspect there is identifying which of all the platforms can be beneficial for him. So an events company, who's likely to be buying his services? Is it corporate businesses? Are corporate businesses going to be on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn? How is he going to engage with them? I think with social media, you can't underestimate that it needs investment, and that investment needs to be structured. For example, I could sit down and do some social media, and I could get carried away by just being distracted by reading other people's posts, getting a bit into what's going on in Facebook with my friends, rather than saying, okay, I'm here for an hour. In that hour, I'm going to post my whole week's activity. So I think it's about doing some research, where's his prospects likely to be, and making some investment, but making sure that he's sharing relevance that his ideal prospects want to see. So, for example, as an events company, I might want to get a flavour of the type of events my business could offer. So rather than just shouting out, we run events, we run events, we run events, sharing case studies, examples, testimonials of what the business can deliver and engage other people. Okay, so again, I'm conscious of time. I think that's the last question that's come through. So let's see if we can unmute Mina, see if she wants to say. Mina?
Yes, hi. Hi, Mike. Thank you very much, Mike. I don't know if there's no more questions and Kerry's happy. I just want to say thank you to everyone again for attending, and thank you to Mike for doing the webinar in an hour, wasn't it? I really enjoyed it because it was a refresher of all the networking elements and all the things that I remember you used to talk about. So it was really good to get a refresh on that. That's always my favorite part of the presentation. And that's it. I don't have anything else. I hope everyone enjoyed, and thank you once more.
Thank you, Mina. Well, I will share these slides or the updated slides with you. So feel free to circulate those. And again, if anybody's got any specific questions,